All right. Thanks, guys. Happy Friday to you. And welcome to my NBA free pick video here for January 21st, 2022. Of course, my name is Brock Page, and I do sports picks for free right here on YouTube. And if you want to see which one of these games on this video that I'm actually betting on personally, there's quite a few of them. There's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for a membership on my website at brockpage.com, where we have packages beginning at just $1.99. And speaking of which, our $1.99 daily best play did in fact cash yesterday. We had Phoenix -3 against Dallas, and as you guys know, the Suns came through for us in the second half. And of course, if you want to see which one of these games on this video here today are being featured as my $1.99 daily best play, the link for that pick is in the description section below. We currently have over 875 members who are signed up and active on my website right now. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some free content. We're going to start off with the Clippers taking on the Sixers. And that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Philadelphia is -8.5 with the total at 214. Now, the Sixers have struggled rebounding the basketball this season. And as a matter of fact, they're amongst the worst teams in the Eastern Conference in offensive rebounding. Having said that, though, the Red Hot Sixers have won 10 out of their last 12. And they successfully covered the point spread in 75% of those ball games. Now, the Sixers have played really tough defensively this season. They're allowing only 105 points a game, and they're also in the top 3 in the NBA in fourth quarter points allowed. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, Joel Embiid, he's averaging 28 points a game along with double-digit rebounds and 4 assists. Meanwhile, Tyrese Maxey, he's drilling over 40% of his 3 balls, and he's also scoring 16 points a game. Not a lot of guys out there talking about Tyrese Maxey. Now, Philly's also leading the entire NBA in offensive free throw percentage at home. They're taking on a Clipper team who lost 6 out of their last 9 themselves. And they also have a losing record on the road. As a matter of fact, the Clippers have gotten the W in just 7 out of 19 road games. And they're averaging just 103 points a game offensively in those contests. Now, injury-wise, Preston is out. Morris and Batum are questionable. Meanwhile, for the Sixers, Thibault and Milton, they are both still out indefinitely. And, of course, Danny Green, he's also sitting this one out here today as well. Now, total-wise, 5 out of Philly's last 7 fell under the posted number. And the Sixers are also 12-7 to the under at the Wells Fargo Center. Meanwhile, the Clippers on the other side, they've gone 63% to the under in all of their road games. I'm going to lean toward Philadelphia -8 in the under 214. All right, next ball game I have for you, it is going to be OKC versus Charlotte, and that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off in the Queen City. Charlotte's -9, totals 223.5. Now, the Hornets have won 6 out of their last 7 ball games, and they also went 6-1 against the spread during that stretch. And speaking of the point spread, the Hornets have been really good covering the number at home this year. They're 14-4 against the spread at the Spectrum Center, and that's good for 78% in that particular category. Miles Bridges is scoring 20 points a game for the Hornets, 7 boards and 3 assists for the forward. Meanwhile, LaMelo Ball, he's scoring over 19 points a game himself, along with 7 rebounds and 7 assists. The Hornets, they are one of the most prolific scoring teams in the NBA right now. They're actually leading the entire association in home scoring, and they're also drilling nearly 40% of their 3 balls in front of their home fans. So this is a team that can really light up the scoreboard. They're a lot of fun to watch. They're taking on an OKC team who isn't really fun to watch. And as a matter of fact, they actually score fewer points per game on the road than any other team in the NBA. OKC averages only 100 points a game when they travel, and they're making just 29% of their three-pointers in that very same category. And equally as bad, OKC's dead last in the NBA in shooting from the field on the road as well. These guys have really, really struggled offensively this season. Now, when it comes to the injury report, Krejci is still out. Favors and Williams are questionable. Meanwhile, for Charlotte on the other side of things, Washington is questionable for them with a hip injury. And when it comes to the total in this one, Charlotte saw overs recently against the likes of Orlando, Detroit, and Washington. They're also 11-7 to the over in the Queen City. Meanwhile, OKC saw 4 out of their last 7 get over the line themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean towards Charlotte -9 in the over 223.5. All right, next ball game I have for you. It is going to be Lakers versus the Magic, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off in Orlando. Now, Los Angeles is -5 on the road with the total at 219 and a hook. And despite their recent struggles, the Lakers actually still got the W in 5 out of their last 9 ball games. And that includes victories over the likes of Utah and Minnesota during that stretch. And although this Laker team has had their issues defensively, they're actually in the top 10 in the NBA in scoring on average per game. LeBron James is averaging over 28.5 points a night, along with 7 boards and 6 assists. And as much as people like to bang on him, he does still get his numbers. I'm talking about Russell Westbrook. Man, he's been getting destroyed in the media. Actually, he's been getting destroyed in the media for some time now. But man, as of late, this guy's getting crushed. But I got to give it to him. He's still getting 18 and a half points a game, along with 8 rebounds and 7 assists. And speaking of rebounds, the Lakers are currently in the top 5 in offensive rebounding on the road. They're taking on an Orlando team who's already 30 games below 500 for the entire season. That's awful. And they've actually garnered themselves only 2 victories at home this year, just 2 home wins. Now, more specifically, the Magic got the W in only 2 out of 18 contests at the Amway Center, and that's good for a pitiful 11% in that particular category. You got to wonder what their average home attendance is. I got to imagine it's below 10,000 spectators a game. But anyway, Orlando's scoring only 99 points a game in front of their poor home fans. Now, they're also dead last in the NBA in shooting from the field at home as well. When it comes to the injury report, Ross and Carter are questionable for the Magic. Meanwhile, for Los Angeles, they're actually mostly healthy for the exception of Davis and Nunn, who are both still out indefinitely. Now, total-wise, LA saw 5 out of their last 7 get over the posted number. Meanwhile, Orlando saw overs recently against Philadelphia, Charlotte, and Washington themselves. I'm going to lean toward the LA Lakers -5 and the over 219.5. Next contest, it is going to be Heat versus the Hawks, 7:30 Eastern start time. Atlanta's -2 with the total at 218.5. Now, the Hawks have won their last 2 straight, and they averaged 128 points a game in those 2 victories. Having said that, though, the Hawks allowed nearly 120 points a game in those 2 contests, and they've consistently have had problems defensively this year. And you can't rely on scoring 130 points a night to win ball games in the NBA. You got to play some defense. And matter of fact, the Hawks are currently in the bottom 10 in points allowed per contest. And they've really had issues guarding the 3 ball. Now, Atlanta's also got themselves a losing record at home. And when it comes to head-to-head meetings, they've actually lost 7 out of their last 10 gatherings with Miami. And speaking of the Heat on the other side of things, they got the W in 6 out of their last 7 themselves. And they've been really good at covering the number lately. Miami's 8-2 against the spread in their last 10 outings. And they've also been covering the number in 60% of their road games this year. Now, Jimmy Butler's averaging over 21.5 points a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists for the forward. Meanwhile, Bam Adebayo is scoring over 18.5 points a game himself, along with double-digit rebounds. And speaking of boards, Miami's amongst the best rebounding teams in the NBA. As a matter of fact, they did lead the entire NBA in defensive rebounding per contest. They also find themselves in the top 10 in offensive rebounding on the road. Now, injury-wise, Tyler Hero's sitting this one out here today in quarantine. Meanwhile, Lowry and Opala are inactive today as well. Meanwhile, for Atlanta, Bogdanovic, he won't be seeing the floor here tonight himself. He's out with a knee injury. Meanwhile, Gallinari, Capella, and Deng are also listed as questionable for Atlanta. And when it comes to the number in this one, the Hawks saw their last 4 straight all get over the posted number. 70% to the over in their last 10. No real surprise there as, like I said, they've been struggling defensively. Meanwhile, Miami saw 6 out of their last 10 get over the line themselves. 16-9 to the over this year when they travel. I'm going to lean toward Miami +2 in the over 218.5. Next contest, it is going to be Blazers versus the Celtics, 7:30 Eastern tip-off. Boston is -8 at home with the total at 212.5. Now, the Celtics got the W in 5 out of their last 7 outings, and they've done a real nice job against Portland in recent meetings. As a matter of fact, the Celtics got the W in 7 out of their last 10 contests against Portland, and they've successfully covered the point spread in 70% of those ball games. Now, the Celtics also play their best basketball this year at home. They're 15-9 straight up at the Garden, and they're allowing only 104 points a game in front of their home fans. Now, scoring-wise, Jason Tatum is averaging over 25 points a game, along with 8 boards and 3 assists. Meanwhile, Jaylen Brown, he's scoring over 24 points a night himself, along with 6 rebounds and 3 assists as well. And, of course, speaking of rebounds, the Celtics currently find themselves in the top 10 in offensive boards per game. They're taking on a depleted Portland team who's going to work here today without Cody Zeller. Cody Zeller, Norm Powell, and Larry Nance. Meanwhile, Smith and Little, they have both been listed as questionable as well. Now, the Blazers have been pretty bad on the road this season, certainly not playing their best basketball when they travel. And as a matter of fact, they're just 4-15 straight up when traveling this season. They also successfully covered the point spread in just 26% of those ball games. The Blazers are also amongst the worst defensive teams in the association as well. They're currently dead last in guarding the 3-ball. And they're also letting their competition make almost 50% of their field goals against them when they travel as well. Now, when it comes to the injury report, once again, Zeller, Powell, and Nance, they are out for Portland here today. Meanwhile, for Boston on the other side, Smart, Williams, and Nesmith, they are listed as questionable. Chance they could play, chance they couldn't play either. So keep an eye on their status if you're looking to fire on this game. Now, total-wise, 5 out of Boston's last 9 got over the line, throwing out that Charlotte game. The Celtics are also 7-3 to the over in their last 10 meetings with Portland. So if you're into historical trends, we did see a good amount of overs in these guys' head-to-head meetings over the past couple of years. Meanwhile, the Blazers on the other side, they saw overs recently against the likes of Washington, Denver, and Miami. I'm going to lean toward Boston -8 and the over 212.5. Next contest, it is going to be Bulls versus the Bucks, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Milwaukee's -10.5 with the total at 228. And aside from their recent struggles, the Bucks have been dominant against Chicago in recent meetings. As a matter of fact, Milwaukee's taken 9 of 10 from Chicago. And the Bucks have also been very good at the Fiserv Forum this season. They're currently 15-8 in front of their home fans. And they're leading the NBA in home offensive rebounding. We actually used to have a viewer. I forget who it was exactly. But we used to have a viewer on this YouTube channel here who worked at the Fiserv Forum. He was a ticket guy or an usher, or maybe he worked in concessions. But anyway, when it comes to Milwaukee, of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's averaging over 11 rebounds a game, along with 28 points a night. Meanwhile, Chris Middleton, he's scoring nearly 20 points a night himself, along with 5 boards and 5 assists. Now, when it comes to defensive play, the Bucks are actually in the top 3 in the NBA in defensive field goal percentage at home. They're taking on a Bulls team who lost 5 out of their last 7. And they've also had a really tough time covering the point spread here lately. As a matter of fact, Chicago failed to cover in 7 out of their last 10 outings. And of course, they're still going to work without Zach LaVine and Lonzo Ball. I think, the absence of those two guys really has impacted these guys' ability to cover the number and just win games straight up. But I'll tell you this much, even if they were mostly healthy here tonight, there's a fairly good chance that Chicago is going to get out-rebounded here tonight. They're actually dead last in the association in offensive rebounding on the road. And of course, when it comes to the injury report, once again, LaVine and Ball, they are still out for the Bulls. Meanwhile, for Milwaukee, on the other side of things, they're actually mostly healthy themselves, for the exception of Brook Lopez, who has back problems. Now, total-wise, Milwaukee went 6-3 to the under in their last 9 ball games, 14-9 to the under on their home court as well. Meanwhile, Chicago on the other side saw unders recently against the likes of Memphis, Detroit, and Dallas. Now, the Bulls are also 70% to the under in their last 10 meetings with Milwaukee. I'm going to lean toward the Bucks minus 10.5 and the under 228. Next contest, it is going to be Toronto versus Washington, 8 o'clock Eastern start time. Washington is -1 with the total at 218. Now, the Wizards have played quite well on their home court this season. They're 13-9 straight up at the Capital One Arena, and they're currently in the top 10 in offensive field goal percentage at home. Bradley Beal is scoring over 23.5 points a game, 4 boards, 6 assists for the guard. Meanwhile, Kyle Kuzma is scoring 15 points a night himself, along with 8 rebounds and a couple assists. Now, when it comes to the defensive play here, the Wizards are in the top 10 in guarding the 3 ball at home as well. They're taking on a Toronto team who lost 4 out of their last 5 ball games themselves. They actually have a losing record on the road this year. And when it comes to the scoring with regard to Toronto, well, the Raptors are averaging only 106 points per contest, and they rank in the bottom 5 in shooting from the field. Now, injury-wise, Birch is out, Trent is questionable. When it comes to the total in this one, Toronto saw contests recently with Utah, San Antonio, and New York get over the posted number. The Raptors are also 60% to the over in their last 10 meetings with the Wizards. Meanwhile, Washington saw 7 out of their last 10 outings get over the line themselves, and they're also 13-9 to the over in front of their home fans. I'm going to lean toward Washington -1 in the over 218. Next contest, it is going to be Nets versus the Spurs, 8:30 Eastern tip-off. Brooklyn is -1.5 with the total at 232 and a hook. Now, the Nets are playing their best basketball on the road this season. They're 16-5 straight up when traveling, and they lead the NBA in guarding the 3 ball on the road. Brooklyn's limiting their competition to just 31% shooting from 3 land away from home. And they're also in the top 3 in road defensive field goal percentage as well. I think it's important to, inform you guys of these defensive stats, because when people think of Brooklyn, they just think of scoring. But these guys have been solid defensively in many different areas. Now, when it does come to the scoring in this one, James Harden, he's averaging over 22.5 points a game, along with 8 boards and double-digit assists for the Beard. Meanwhile, Kyrie Irving, he's scoring 22 points a game on the road, 5 boards, 5 assists for Kyrie. Now, the Nets are leading the entire NBA in road offensive field goal percentage, and they're also drilling nearly 40% of their three-pointers in that same category. Now, injury-wise, Durant and Millsap are still out indefinitely. Meanwhile, Bembry and Claxton are questionable. Now, the Spurs on the other side of things, well, Collins is still out. Hernan Gomez, he is questionable. When it comes to the total in this one, San Antonio's 16-6 to the over at the AT&T Center this year. They're also 60% to the over in their last 10 meetings with Brooklyn. Meanwhile, the Nets saw overs recently with Washington, OKC, and Chicago. I'm going to lean toward Brooklyn -1.5 and the over 232 and a hook. Next matchup, it is going to be Pistons versus the Jazz, 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Utah is -13.5 with the total at 218. But as good as Utah was to start the season, I'll tell you what, this is a mighty big number for a team who lost 6 out of their last 7 ball games. And not only did Utah give up a whole bunch of points during that span, they're also amongst the worst covering teams at home in the West. They've gotten the job done against the number, in just 8 out of 23 home games this year. And that's good for just 34% during that stretch. So although Utah won a bunch of games, especially a bunch of games at home, they haven't been cashing in. They haven't been cashing in on tickets. Now, I'll tell you what, my biggest concern for Utah backers in this ball game here today, it's this. Utah actually tend to give up points late in games. And as a matter of fact, they're currently in the bottom 5 in the NBA in third quarter points allowed at home. So even if they're up, there's a possibility they could let Detroit creep back into the game. They are taking on a Detroit team who is not helpless with regard to covering the spread. They can cover the number. And as a matter of fact, they've gone 4-3 against the number in their last 7 ball games with outright victories over Sacramento, Toronto, Orlando, and this very Utah team during that span. Now, the Pistons are also in the top 10 in fourth quarter scoring on the road, which always leaves the door open for a backdoor cover. And like I said, Utah, they like to give up points in the second half. They like to give up points in that third quarter. So this could potentially be a recipe for a backdoor cover, incredibly big number. And of course, when it comes to the scoring, Cade Cunningham, he's averaging 15 points a game for the Pistons, along with 5 rebounds and 5 assists. Meanwhile, Saddiq Bey, he's scoring over 15 points a night himself, along with 6 boards and a couple assists as well. Now, when it comes to the injury report, Jackson is out. Hayes is questionable. Meanwhile, for Utah, leading scorer Donovan Mitchell, he's out with a concussion. Hassan Whiteside, he's also in quarantine. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, the Jazz saw a contest recently with Denver, Detroit, and Indiana get over the posted total. They're also 14-9 to the over at the Vivint Arena. Meanwhile, Detroit saw 4 out of their last 6 ball games get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Detroit Pistons plus 13.5, keeping this one close, and the over 218. Next ball game, it is going to be Grizzlies versus the Nuggets, 9 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Denver's -3 with the total at 224.5. The Nuggets won 3 out of their last 4 ball games, and they're also winning 60% of their contests at the Ball Arena. Now, the Nuggets have done a pretty nice job defensively this season. They're allowing only 105 points a night at home, and they're also in the top 10 in defensive boards. Now, offensively, Nikola Jokic, he's averaging nearly 26 points a game, along with 13 boards and 7 assists. Meanwhile, Will Barton is scoring 15 points a night himself, along with 4 rebounds and 4 assists. Now, the Nuggets have done a nice job of shooting the basketball. They're in the top 10 in offensive field goal percentage. They're taking on a Memphis team who lost 2 out of their last 3 themselves. And they still have to go to work here tonight without Brooks, Bane, Tilly, Jones, and Anderson. And of course, between Brooks and Bane, that's a lot of meat you're leaving all on the bone there, especially with Bane. He's so good at shooting from beyond the arc. Now, the Grizzlies have struggled with Denver in recent meetings. They lost 7 out of their last 10 ball games against the Nuggets, and they actually averaged only 106 points a night in those contests. And a lot of those games, those were in the era of the NBA where they were calling a foul on every possession. So to average only 106 points a game during that span, not a great thing. But I'll tell you this much. The Grizzlies, they've been one of the worst teams in the West in shooting the basketball on the road. I know that sounds crazy, but they're actually in the bottom 10 in road offensive field goal percentage, and they're making just 32% of their three-pointers in that same category, so certainly think about that. Now, total-wise, 3 out of Memphis's last 4 fell under the posted number, 60% to the under in their last 10 outings with Denver. Meanwhile, the Nuggets saw unders recently with OKC, Utah, and the Clippers themselves. I'm going to lean toward Denver -3 and the under 224.5. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup of the show. It is going to be Rockets versus the Warriors, and that's going to be a 10 o'clock Eastern start time. Golden State's -10.5 with the total at 228. And despite a bit of a rough patch here recently for Golden State, I'm not overly concerned with this game. They've been really good at the Chase Center this season. They're 19-4 straight up at home, 70% against the point spread in those 23 home games. And of course, Steph Curry, he's scoring over 26 points a night, along with 5 rebounds and 6 assists. Meanwhile, Andrew Wiggins, he's shooting 42% from three land. He's also averaging 18 points a game. And of course, when it comes to the defensive play, well, the Warriors are pretty much the best in the game. They're allowing only 99 points per contest at home. And they actually rank first in the NBA in home defensive field goal percentage. Now, they're taking on a Houston team who won just 7 out of 26 on the road this season. They actually allow more points per contest on the road than any other team in the NBA. The Rockets are giving up 117 points a night when they travel. And they're also letting their opponents connect on 48% of their field goals against them in that same category. Basically, whoever they face, they're scoring, 1 out of every 2 possessions. But anyway, the Rockets are relatively healthy right now, injury-wise, so they do have that going for them. Meanwhile, for the Warriors on the other side, Iguodala and Thompson, they are out. But when it comes to the total in this one, Golden State, they're still 16-7 to the under at the Chase Center despite those absences. Meanwhile, Houston, they saw 3 out of their last 5 fall under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Golden State minus 10.5 and the under 228. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our quick pick recap, powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, home of the $1.99 daily best play. I like Philadelphia minus 8.5, under 214. Charlotte minus 9, over 223.5. LA Lakers minus 5, over 219 and a hook. Miami Heat plus 2, over 218.5. Boston minus 8, over 212.5. Milwaukee minus 10.5, under 228. Washington minus 1, over 218. Brooklyn minus 1.5, over 232 and a hook. Detroit plus 13.5, over 218. Denver minus 3, under 224.5. And before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that if you want to access today's $1.99 daily best play, the link for that pick is in the description section below. I'm going to lean toward Golden State minus 10.5 and the under 228. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our shout out of the day. And that's going to go to my good friend DJ Wavy, who said yesterday, "Let's get it, bro. Time to make that money. Those are Brock's bucks." God bless you and all of your viewers. And when he said Brock's bucks, he's not referring to Milwaukee. He actually had an emoji of a money bag and a stack of money, a stack of hundreds or ones. I don't know what denomination they were. But anyway, always good to see DJ Wavy. Arguably my best supporter. So DJ Wavy, great to see you in the comment section as always. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. Now, if you guys do end up getting a membership here today on that website, just keep in mind you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today on that website, not only are you going to get the pick you paid for today, you're actually going to get access to that content every single day all the way through the end of January. You're not just paying for one pick. You're getting picks every single day all the way through the end of January. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. And of course, if you guys want to get access to every single pick that I give out on that website, you're going to want to think about signing up for my board member package, where board members get access to every single pick that I give out on that website all the way through the end of January as well. But most importantly, guys, I got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Friday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.